And I will start my presentation on SMB keeping, clients, clusters, and clouds. And if the pun in the name isn't obvious, well, hopefully it will be after you see some of the illustrations. My name is John Mulligan. I am a software developer at IBM. I focus on the SMB on Ceph stack. I also often contribute to the orchestration system. I'm a member of the Samba team. I'm a heavy user of Python, and I am just crazy about containers. Today we're talking about SMB on Ceph. If you're here and you don't know what SMB is, I'd be really surprised. The important thing I want to start off with is with Ceph Tentacle, SMB will be part of an officially supported Ceph release. It's taken a lot to get to this point, and I'm really excited about what's coming. For the content of the talk, I'm going to talk a little bit about the past, what brought us here. We'll do a very short demo showing off some of the core features of SMB on Ceph and how easy it is to use. I'll talk about the present, some of the new features and integrations we developed in 2025, and then we'll cover a brief discussion about some of the future of SMB on Ceph. So our core feature set, something that was already available on Ceph Main when I last spoke at CephLCon last year, covers a suite of features. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about the Ceph Manager module. Ceph Manager module has a general global view of all of the SMB things that we need to care about, and it understands how to configure Samba, and it understands how to talk to Ceph ADM to orchestrate and deploy the containers we need to run SMB on Ceph. We have AD integration, providing identity management and authentication using the premier system for IDM on Windows systems. We integrate with CDDB. CDDB is Samba's tool for true clustering, giving it resiliency in HA. Our team is a maintainer of the VFS module, VFS Ceph New, which is part of the Samba source tree. Years ago, a module was developed called VFS Ceph, which used CephFS high-level APIs. That module unfortunately lacked maintainership for quite a long time. Our team came around, started improving it, realized we needed the low-level CephFS APIs, and created VFS Ceph New. We've been maintaining and improving it ever since. In addition to the module itself, we have a tool which lives in the Ceph source tree called the CephFS proxy. This tool allows scaling by concentrating at CephFS connections in one single proxy daemon. Because of the way SMBD forks and creates many child processes, this allows the system to have lower memory usage than it would otherwise. And then finally, last but not least, we have a metrics exporter. This takes metrics directly from Samba and turns them into something that is Prometheus compatible. And again, all these things are already available in Ceph Main, and they will soon be available in Tentacle. One of the things we really focused on is trying to make SMB on Ceph very easy to use. It only takes 2 commands to create a Ceph cluster, an SMB on Ceph cluster that uses Active Directory and CDDB clustering. I won't go into all these details because this is included in our brief demo. In addition to the command line, we now support the Ceph dashboard, or the Ceph dashboard supports SMB, one of those two. I'm not a big GUI guy, but when I look at it, I say, hey, that looks pretty good to me. I've mentioned the CLI and I've mentioned the dashboard. These interfaces are all based on a layered approach. We have imperative command lines like cluster create, share remove, and so on. In addition to that, we support a declarative interface. This is inspired by Ceph ADM and my previous experience with Kubernetes. And then the dashboard is layered on top of these. But we don't just have clean layering inside of our command line. We try to have that on our back end as well. We're one of the few components in Ceph that uses the sidecar model, where each daemon is deployed in its own container, and then those containers are wired together as needed. Our primary container is SMBD, the main SMB component of Samba. If you're deploying with Active Directory, we deploy a Windbind sidecar. If you're clustering, we deploy CTDB-D, which is really a tongue twister. We deploy SMB metrics to create those Prometheus metrics I mentioned earlier. And then we have configuration sidecars and a few other small helpers that help integrate back into the rest of the Ceph cluster. Now for a brief demo, which I realize I cannot see from here. All right, so we have a 3-node Ceph cluster with nothing on it SMB-wise. We're going to create it with the SMB cluster create command. The cluster is named Demo1, and it will use Active Directory. We want to provide the name of that domain, which is just a scratch domain based on a Samba DC. We're going to provide our throwaway administrator account, which has a password that you'll all see in plain text. Finally, we're going to set a placement of 3. This is the Ceph ADM placement, but when we tell it any placement greater than 1, the SMB stack knows it's going to enable CTDB automatically. We're going to create a new share. It's named Photos and is a member of the Demo1 cluster. It's going to use CephFS, subvolume group G1, subvolume S1, SV1, root of the subvolume, and we're going to give it a Samba share name of photo archive. Once the share has been created, orchestration will begin. Ceph ADM is now deploying all of our containers. I've sped up time here, so it does take a little while to download the containers and set everything up. Now that SMB is up and running, we're going to jump on over to a Windows client already joined to Active Directory. The user's logged in already. We're going to open Explorer, and we're going to put in the IP address of the first node in our cluster. We do support floating or virtual IPs, but it's not a part of this demo because I wanted to show how both nodes are part of the same share. So we've logged into our share. We're going to create an example file. We're going to move on over to a different Explorer window. We're going to put in the IP address of the second Ceph node in our cluster. And you'll see that it is sharing the exact same share with the exact same data. So within 2 minutes, we've run 2 commands, and now we are running 3 SMB nodes on our Ceph cluster with Active Directory. Of course, this is all stuff that you could do last year if you were willing to run Ceph main. We haven't been idle in the meantime, and one of our biggest tasks in 2025 is developing various integrations, particularly for higher level cloud orchestration. We have 4 features I'm going to talk about today that improve the density of the cluster, improve integration with cloud management planes, give the system a better predictable performance, and improve security when you're using multiple tenants. All of this is because we feel that SMB, particularly as it is built into Windows, Mac, Linux, is a very relevant file system even in a cloud environment. So, our first big new feature is what we call co-location, a feature that helps improve the multi-tenancy. So a cloud could have multiple customers. These could be true paying customers or just different departments with different needs. For example, one department might have their own unique Active Directory which can't integrate with the first cluster. We already supported having multiple clusters within one Ceph cluster, but they could never run on more. One instance could not run on the same Ceph cluster node. Co-location allows more than one SMB instance to run on the same Ceph node. This improves resource utilization. The feature is achieved by 2 options. You can either separate by port or you can separate by IP address. When you separate by port, you can use the new custom ports option and specify the various ports that you want your cluster to listen to. Similarly, if you want to separate by IP address, you can specify the new bind adders option and specify networks that will constrain the system to listen to only interfaces that use those networks. You can combine them. I'm not entirely sure why you want to, but you can do that. Our next major feature is a new sidecar called remote control. Orchestration is great. I really like it. But generally, orchestration acts at a very macro level. It tends to be asynchronous. It's general. Even a system like Ceph ADM, which is specific to Ceph, still has to be fairly general. And it's big picture. However, there are times where you want your control plane to have more specific, immediate information from the system you're managing. This is why we developed a new sidecar called remote control. Remote control provides an endpoint on gRPC and a small set of APIs. The gRPC endpoint is secured with mutual TLS, and the APIs we provide include giving information about clients and shares, connected clients and shares. We can also disconnect a client, either by specifying a share or specifying an IP. So if you look at your connected clients and say, oh, there's Bob, he hasn't paid in 3 months, you can just disconnect him right then and there. And the idea here is that a high-level management, maybe they've developed some sort of interface, allows an administrator to see what's going on with the SMB cluster. We're also investigating using this for more things, including debugging and diagnostics. Our third major feature is QoS and rate limiting. What rate limiting attempts to do is to provide a mechanism so that administrators can block certain clients from using all of the network bandwidth. This is currently a work in progress. We have patches on Samba, and we have patches available for Ceph. You can specify limits on either bandwidth or IOPS, or both. You can configure the delay so that if your client is using too much, you can have it back off more or less depending on your needs. And my teammates asked me to say that this affects asynchronous SMB operations. I'm not entirely sure what that means. I think it means reads and writes, but not like directory listing. If you need more information, I'm happy to get you in touch with someone who knows better about this subject. Our final major feature is FS-Crypt and KeyBridge. I mentioned multi-tenancy earlier. That was a feature for multi-tenancy resource utilization. But what about security? Tenant A may not trust tenant B and want to have the data secured in a more robust way. The CephFS team has developed a new API based on the kernel's FS-Crypt feature, but added it to the CephFS user space library. What this allows you to do is when you're connecting to the CephFS, you specify a key that will uniquely protect the file names and file content within a subvolume. Those keys, however, are not immediately available on the system. This is where the cloud integration comes in with a new sidecar called KeyBridge. KeyBridge is designed to be generic and a connector between SMBD and the outside world. SMBD and KeyBridge talk over a very simple local key value-based RPC API using a library called varlink. Right now, we only support KMIP for our backend, but adding additional backends would be quite easy. We secure our connection to the cloud KMS with MTLS. Keeping things inside of KeyBridge means Samba does not need to know about how to talk to the KMS. And I skipped over the first bullet, so I want to mention this is also a work in progress. We have patches for Samba and Ceph, and the FS-Crypt feature itself is also a work in progress on Ceph. I did prepare a more detailed demo, but I couldn't make it very short. If we have extra time during questions and answers, I may show some parts of the demo live, But the whole thing is available at the following URL, and the QR code is the same guy. It covers co-location and remote control because those are the features that are available in Maine today. So that covers our big integration features that we developed for 2025. So as I mentioned, 2024 was getting the core of SMB in Ceph. 2025, various integrations. I hope that 2026 becomes the year for community involvement with SMB on Ceph. With Tentacle, I think there are fewer barriers to entry for folks to actually get their hands on our feature. I want to hear from you on what you want to see feature-wise, whether it's integration or core SMB features. And I guess I went faster than I expected because I am at the end of the slide deck. Any questions, or I can warm up the room by asking anyone already using SMB on Ceph? All right. Go ahead, thank you.
Okay. Your multi-tenancy with different IPs, does that use network namespaces in Linux to ensure there's no MAC address leaking or anything to really ensure multi-tenancy, I suppose?
No, today it's just gonna separate, how do I say it? It will figure out what interfaces are on a particular subnet and tell the system to only bind to that interface.
Okay. Any plans to introduce or implement network namespaces?
It's just a thought. When we containerize and we don't use CTDB, we use the default network namespace that Podman or Docker gives you. CTDB gives interesting limitations on what we can do. So in that mode, we use host networking. But yeah, we can look into that. That's interesting. Thank you.
Does it support full Windows ACLs, and can you specify ID map parameters for Samba?
So we do support ACLs today. We currently support one ID mapping mode, and that would be the, I'm forgetting the name. It's like the easiest mode to implement. Do you remember? Auto-RID, thank you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because we have existing Samba gateway that we did on our own. But if we ported it over, I think all the ID map would be different.
Right. So that's one of the things I was wondering when we would be asked to enlarge the scope of the different ID mappings we support. So yeah, I mean, feel free to file an official tracker if this is something you want to have us look into.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
So can you support simultaneous access from NFS and SMB?
Not today. So right now, there's a feature in Ceph called earmarking, where we earmark a volume for either SMB or NFS. There is an ongoing conversation about when and how to have true multi-protocol support where we have both on the same subvolumes. There might be some limitations, so it might be its own like third type.
In your example or your demo, you showed a few commands to create a share. Are these commands also available through GoCeph? Because if we would like to integrate it in Ceph CSI,
So
the GoCeph API would be very handy.
the commands I demonstrated are what I call the imperative commands. They're like, do this, do that. Those are actually layered on top of the declarative resources. We have a share resource, a cluster resource, and some other helpers. The GoCeph API currently supports, and probably will only support, the declarative API, just because it matches the model better. But we do have GoCeph wrappers for those already, and we'll be adding some more for some of these features. Thanks. Anything else?
You showed FS script.
Yes.
And I'm thinking of a Ceph CSI perspective, where we also support FS script. Is it possible to not use FS script on the SMB side, but just use client-side FS script on top of SMB?
Not with this architecture. I'm trying to think of how we would do it. We should just
Yeah.
probably talk afterward. Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah, you stumped me. Good job.
Thanks. No problem.
All right, since I have a little extra time, since I have a captive audience, if I can, I will, because I like this, I think it's fun. And it's hard to do this. So the first few, you can't hear me, the first few minutes are explaining the resources. But I want to jump to remote control because I find it amusing. All right, I think this will do it. So we're going to create a client connection here using the SMB client, and we already have a Windows connection to our share. So we're going to use a command line tool called grpc URL or grp curl. It's based on curl but talks gRPC. And we're going to query it, and it's going to show our client connections over this gRPC-based API. Now that we have some information about that client, we're going to use a different API, feed it the IP address of the SMB client, and terminate that connection. And if you watch below, you will see SMB client disconnect. There it goes. I'm easily amused, so I figured since I had gone so fast with the presentation, I would amuse you all. And that's it. Anything else? All right, thank you very much.